historically, we've been the object of other people's gaze. And so people have written about us, they've painted us, they've photographed us, other people have filmed us, and at the end of the day, it becomes their story about us and not our story. What we want to help support is a new generation of native video game makers, because video games are becoming as important as any of those other mass media.
It was really nice watching them play the paper prototype, because they would get all excited and like, okay, here I'm coming, boom, 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 and all this kind of game interaction with just paper and little clay models that they had.
The game begins in a community village with the longhouse, and Skawennati is a young boy about the age of 15.
Who is known in the community as a braggart and very boastful and a little bit ego-driven.
And so they decide to call him to task.
The elder says to Skawennati,
"Guess what, Skawennati? The council have come together and we have great news for you." And Skawennati's like, "What?" And he's like, "We've decided to have you fight the stone giant." Me?
Go take the canoe and then go down the river and try to dodge rocks and stones and all this.
He's really having trouble navigating, and he sees this great big whirlpool, and he starts getting caught up in that current.
He gets out of the canoe and walks down the cliffs. And when he gets down to the bottom of the cliffs,
and he sees the stone giant on the other side of the river, and he says, "My name is Skawennati, and I'm here to stop you. You're starving our people because you're chasing away all those fish."
here's the stone giant saying, "I will get him."
The giant's coming up in his ear. "Where's Skawennati?" The giant says, "I'm coming and get you."
Skawennati knows that the giant spit is magic.
Skawennati decides to run all the way around and dip his hatchet into the magic spit.
Now he has a magical, invincible hatchet, and basically he starts attacking the giant from afar.
Then the stone giant says, "That's it, I retreat, I give up. You're a great warrior, and I shall not bother your people no more." And that's where the story ends.
Welcome to the Manitowoc Powwow 2112. And for all of you watching on the net, we are broadcasting, nearcasting, and podcasting live from the Winnipeg Olympic Stadium. My name is Luke Midawasti, and I am absolutely honored to be your host this weekend. You will witness some of the best drumming and dancing in the galaxy. Tonight, after the competition, treat yourself to a concert of cutting-edge music featuring the most notorious FN punk band ever, the famous Dead Mohawks. And tomorrow night, it's time to trade in your moccasins for some Manolo Blahniks and come to the fabulous Manitowoc Fashion Show, featuring all the heavy hitters, Dorothy Grant, Chanel, Tammy Bova, and more. Look at all those beautiful jingle dancers. Our dancers are competing for some incredible prizes. Not only does every dancer get a free eyewear implant just for participating, but we're also giving away a space cruise to Saturn's rings, his and hers matching Ferraris, and $1 billion in cold hard cash. And now, allow me to introduce our stunning head female dancer, hailing from the Cree Nation and just winding up her reign as Miss Universe 2111, Amethyst Starblanket. My grandmother told me at one time her grandmother told her the powwow was outlawed. They didn't want us Indians to get together in public. They didn't want us to get together because we'd talk. We'd plan. So, what did we do? We got together in private. We got busy. As record numbers of Indian babies were born in the 21st century, the powwow grew and thrived with more dancers, singers, and drummers, bigger shows, larger audiences, and worldwide broadcast rights.
Let's talk about this faraway place for a moment. We sometimes call it Kanien'kehá, In your language, that means sky world. Its people are a peaceful race who have overcome most diseases and hardly know the meaning of death. They have harnessed geothermal, wind, and solar power and are brilliant botanists. One of their greatest creations is the celestial tree, developed over thousands of years of careful cultivation. The tree's blossoms emit light. In fact, they light the whole world.
Avec de simples mots, on a le pouvoir de tout détruire. Et avec les mêmes mots, on a le pouvoir de tout décrire. Les mots prônent la haine, mais ils chantent l'amour. Les mots n'ont peur de rien, car les mots ont de la bravoure. Les mots ont de la colère, mais ils ont une douceur. On se forge un caractère quand on chante nos douleurs. C'est grâce à l'écriture que je surmonte mes épreuves. Mot par mot, je suis en train de bâtir mon œuvre. Les mots ont du pouvoir, ils sont audacieux. Et on s'inspire d'eux, car ils sont courageux. Les mots ont de la tristesse, les mots ont une noblesse. Et ils se collent à ma vie, car les mots sont modestes. Les mots me grugent de l'intérieur, ils me font voyager en attendant un monde meilleur. C'est grâce aux mots que je raconte mon histoire. Les mots peuvent me guérir, les mots me donnent de l'espoir. Les mots chantent les drames, les mots viennent de l'âme. Les mots n'ont peur de rien, car les mots sont une arme.
Les mots chantent les drames, les mots viennent de l'âme. Les mots n'ont peur de rien, car les mots sont une arme.
Les mots chantent les drames, les mots viennent de l'âme. Les mots n'ont peur de rien, car les mots sont une arme.
Les mots chantent les drames, les mots viennent de l'âme. Les mots n'ont peur de rien, car les mots sont une arme.
Y'a les mots qui instruisent, détruisent, des mots qui méprisent, des mots qu'on utilise quand on veut se faire la bise. Y'a les mots qui prédisent, s'enlisent, les mots qu'on banalise, les mots qui nous divisent et les mots qui nous brisent. Y'a les mots qui s'entendent, qui se répandent, les mots qui prétendent, les mots qui nous offensent, c'est les mots plus tendres. Y'a les mots qu'on prononce avec prudence, c'est les mots qu'on lance, les mots qui nous dénoncent et ceux qui nous défendent. Y'a les mots qui blessent, qui fessent, les mots qui protestent, les mots d'ivresse remplis de promesses qui blessent, grotesques. Les mots plus doux, les mots plus sales, les mots plus fous, les mots plus joyeux, les mots qui se cachent dans un journal, les mots qui parlent, les mots qui partent scandale, les mots plus graves que ceux qu'on grave sur une pierre tombale, les mots qui pleurent, les mots du mal. Les mots du cœur, le mot final, les maudits mots, les maudits mal.
Les mots marquent le temps, racontent le présent. Les mots s'envolent et nous éclairent en tombant. Les mots sont optimistes, ils pensent nos cicatrices. Les mots nous font peur car ils sont réalistes. Ils sont plutôt espiègles, les mots n'ont pas de règles. Ils racontent nos vérités car les mots sont intègres. Les mots valent mille images, s'expriment dans plusieurs langues. Mes mots donnent la vie car mes phrases sont vivantes. Ce qui m'inspire, c'est la vie que je respire. Les peines comme les sourires, la beauté de mes souvenirs. Et les mots m'ont appris qu'on se doit être sincère. Quand les mots sortent du cœur, y a pas que nous qu'on libère. Les mots chantent les drames, les mots viennent de l'âme. Les mots n'ont peur de rien car les mots sont une arme.
Les mots chantent les drames, les mots viennent de l'âme. Les mots n'ont peur de rien car les mots sont une arme.
Les mots chantent les drames, les mots viennent de l'âme. Les mots n'ont peur de rien car les mots sont une arme.
Les mots chantent les drames, les mots viennent de l'âme. Les mots n'ont peur de rien car les mots sont une arme.
La table étant bien mise pour une discussion fort intéressante, j'aimerais que vous accueilliez chaleureusement nos invités de ce soir. Donc, je prie nos invités de se joindre à moi ici. Donc, Stephen Loft, Jason Edward Lewis, Samian, Skawennati. On vous accueille chaleureusement sur scène.
Sego. Before I start anything, I want to say Nyawagoa to Silver Bear for your words, for your welcome. I travel a lot, and when I travel, I introduce myself and acknowledge the territory that I'm on. But my name is Steve Loft. I'm Kanien'kehá of the Haudenosaunee. My home community is the Six Nations of the Grand River, but this is also part of our customary territory. And my brothers and sisters from this territory, I thank you for welcoming me on it. and I'm always happy to be on our customary lands. It gives me power, it gives me strength, and I think about our ancestors, our people, our elders, our wisdom keepers, and our truth tellers. And I want to honor them with my words and with the words of my brothers and sisters up here. I hope we're in for an interesting conversation because we have three people here who think about the past and the present and the future in innovative, exciting, and very radically different ways. So I'm going to do the quickie bio so that you can know them as well, and then we'll get right into it because you don't want to hear me talk, you want to hear them. Directly to my left is Jason Edward Lewis, who is the professor and the research chair in computational media and the Indigenous Future Imaginary at Concordia University. He's a 2014 Pierre, Elliott, Trudeau Foundation Fellow. So I'm incredibly pleased to be part of a community with Jason, who I've known for a long time. He's a digital media artist, poet, and software designer. He's based at Concordia. He founded the OBX Laboratory for Experimental Media, which develops digital media in its conceptual, creative, and technical dimensions. At OBX, he directs research creation projects, devising new means of creating and experiencing digital texts, experimenting with systems for the creative use of mobile technology. He's actually a lot more interesting than this sounds, by the way. Designing alternative interfaces for live performance and using virtual environments to assist Indigenous communities in preserving, interpreting, and communicating cultural histories. He's also the co-founder and the co-director of the Aboriginal Territories in Cyberspace, AbTech, Research Network, and the Skins Workshops on Aboriginal Storytelling and Video Game Design, which you saw part of. He's also an amazing artist and poet, and I hope you get the chance to see and hear and experience some of his works, which have been shown nationally and internationally. Samian is Anishinabe. He's as you could very well see, he's a musical artist, an actor, a photographer, and he is the spokesperson, one of the spokesperson for Wapikoni Mobile, which is an incredibly important and has an organization that has had such an effect on Indigenous communities in Quebec and beyond for a long time, and hopefully we'll talk a bit about that. He grew up in Anishinabe Algonquin community of Pikogin in Quebec's Abitibi-Témiscamingue region. In 2004, he had a life-changing encounter with Wapikoni Mobile and recorded a series of songs and videos that launched his career. In 2006, the video Courage was named Best Music Video at the Festival International des Peuples Autochtones in Pau, France. His first rap album, Face à Soi-même, followed in 2007. This is an amazing part. With the help of his grandmother, who translated his lyrics, he began integrating Algonquin phrases into his songs, which opened a new pathway to learning his original language and ancestral history. Since then, he has released 2 more albums, Face à la musique and Enfant de la Terre. He works in multiple artistic fields, and his 4 film appearances include a starring role in Hochelaga, Land of Souls, François Girard's 2017 feature film, selected to represent Canada at the Oscars. And more recently, he has explored his passion for photography by traveling the world producing images that capture the poetry in the faces of people of all ages, especially children and elders. Skawennati, who is also Kanien'kehá of the Haudenosaunee from Kahnawake, makes art that addresses history, the future, and change from an Indigenous perspective. Best known for her machinimas. I would disagree with that. I think you're known for a wide variety of work, but you should change your bio, which are movies made in virtual environments. She also produces still images, sculpture, and textile works. Her pioneering new media projects, As Rebecca Belmore reminds us, we should never say pioneering when we talk about ourselves, but that's just change the... yeah, I think we'll do some edits here, okay? Include the online gallery chat space and mixed reality event Cyber Powwow, which ran from 1997 to 2004. A paper doll time travel journal, Imagining Indians in the 25th century, of which we have part in the offices where I work, so I get to see it every day. And Time Traveler, part of which you saw, which is a multi-platform project featuring 9 machinima episodes. They've been presented across this land and internationally as well. So I just, if you just help me welcome our wonderful guests. So, the Indigenous Future Imaginary. One of the interesting things about being Indigenous on this land and to this land, and as our elder reminded us, we return to this land, is that we have a connection to place and space that's vastly different. But we also know that we have been the subject and the victim of oppression, attempted genocide, racism, colonialism that continue to this day. How do you think about the future in that kind of environment and atmosphere? So I'm going to start off by asking you all, you've all in your work in very different ways explored notions of an Indigenous future through your particular lens. So I'd like to ask you, what does that future look like to you, and what's your role in framing it? I'll start with Jason.
No, thanks for the intros. So the question of what it is, I think, is a challenging question, because so part of what the work that we do is we sort of talk to a number of Indigenous people and do sort of support artwork by them sort of imagining what the future is. And one of the interesting things about it is, you know, there's a very varied set of imaginings what those futures might be like. But you know, there's a couple things that come through, you know, kind of over and over again in those imagined futures. So one of them is sort of, you know, a future in which the relationship to sort of territory and the land and then sort of the wider ecology is very much in the forefront and thought about kind of deeply in terms of sort of kinship. So sort of kin with your fellow community members, kin with the greater sort of circle of humanities, but then kin with non-human relations as well. Another thing that's really interesting is how a lot of what we see in some of these conversations is a real sort of deep thinking about how the things that we know as Indigenous peoples from our community, from our heritage, are actually things that will prepare us well for the sort of challenges that are coming ahead. Sort of fortunately or unfortunately, it doesn't really matter maybe which one. You know, a lot of these imaginings, there's some sort of kind of second apocalypse that happens, kind of an ecological apocalypse that happens. So a lot of them are about, like, you know, surviving that moment and then what life is like afterwards, where the balance is restored. And a large part of that is thinking about how the teachings of our communities and our ancestors can help us restore that balance.
Moi, ça va être en français. On peut pas imaginer on peut pas imaginer un futur sans parler du moment présent, en fait. Et c'est dur à concevoir s'il n'y a pas d'actions qui se font maintenant. Et je pense que pour l'avenir des Premières Nations, ce qui compte, et je pense que l'enjeu principal en ce moment, c'est d'arrêter l'hémorragie, parce que faut pas oublier qu'on est en 2017, mais qu'on est encore dans un génocide actif. Le Canada fête 150 ans de confédération et la loi sur les Indiens existe depuis 141 ans. Faites le calcul. Faut pas être calé en mathématiques pour comprendre que ce génocide est toujours actif, qu'on a encore des communautés comparables au tiers-monde. On a encore plus de 20 000 personnes des Premières Nations au Canada qui n'ont pas accès à de l'eau potable. Et on est dans un pays tellement riche qu'on est prêt à mettre plus de 80 millions de dollars par année pour trouver de l'eau sur la planète Mars. Donc, je pense que si on est assez intelligent pour avoir accès à une technologie aussi avancée que ça, je pense qu'on a un devoir, pas nécessairement en tant que politicien, mais on a un devoir en tant que citoyen d'être le changement qu'on veut vouloir voir dans nos communautés aussi, comme disait Gandhi. Et ça, j'y crois fermement. Et puis, je pense qu'on doit être des modèles dans nos communautés. On ne doit pas nécessairement vouloir le changement, mais on doit incarner le changement. Et je pense que nos dirigeants ont beaucoup à voir à travers tout ça. Et si on est capable de s'intéresser à de l'eau potable sur d'autres planètes et qu'on n'est pas capable de reconnaître que les Premières Nations, on est les racines même de l'Amérique, et parfois ça fait du bien de revenir à ces racines et pour comprendre d'où on vient, où on va. Et puis je pense que le futur est un enjeu d'un présent actuel. Et je pense qu'on se doit de s'occuper de nous-mêmes, de nos communautés, des Premières Nations. Et c'est de cette façon-là qu'on pourra peut-être envisager un avenir.
Kanien'kehá, Stephen, my cousin, also wanted to say that. It's nice to meet you here. My future looks like Star Trek, specifically Generation, I was going to say Generation X, which makes me seem like not a Trekkie at all. Anyway, and the one with Jean-Luc Picard. So I really would love to see all the beings on planet Earth living in harmony, and while also retaining, their alien nature. Just like the Vulcans live in harmony with the humans in Star Trek. One of the things that I do as an artist is the reason why I allowed myself to become an artist, because of course it seems kind of selfish to be an artist, right? Like you just get to draw? What? Make pictures? Shouldn't those pictures shouldn't they mean something? Shouldn't they give something to the world? That's sort of where I was at. And it was sort of when I realized, after years of fandom of science fiction, not just Star Trek, but lots of other books and movies and TV shows, that there weren't any brown people in the future. And I was a little disappointed. And so I started to think, I think I can do that. I think that can be my role, is just envisioning Indigenous people in the future. And that's basically what I've been doing for 20 years. And so one of the things that, you can't envision the future without looking at the present or the past, it seems to me. And one of the things, too, that I've been thinking about is, why do I still want to be Native in the future? What's so great about being Native or Indigenous or whatever the word you want to use this month is? And, it comes from our past. It comes from the amazing things that our people have done. For myself, what I'm thinking of is the Confederation of the Haudenosaunee. Right now I've been thinking about that a lot, in which the peacemaker came through this territory and met with 5 warring nations, met with the people of those places, and spread a message of love. And what he did, how he one-upped Jesus and Gandhi, is he also provided a structure for peace. And he called it the Longhouse. So he created a metaphor using the structure that was already there, of extended families living together in a longhouse and said, now you 5 nations who have been at war for as long as you can remember, you're going to live in this longhouse together. And he taught them how to do consensus, and he taught them, he gave them this whole structure that I can't relate to you all right now. So what I've been thinking about is, can we take those old traditions and that knowledge and that amazing stuff that we've done and bring it with us to now to propel us into the future and live together in harmony? That's it.
Yeah, nothing to all that, right? Yeah, that's like happening now. Thank you. To go further on sort of some of those concepts, for when we think about Indigenous worldviews, perspectives, ways of being, ways of knowing, ways of creating, concepts of past, present, and future are much more intertwined and I would argue inseparable. We just don't see them as these either a linear, but even as a separate thing that can be pulled apart. But they have to be fused together. Certainly that's part of our traditions as Kanien'kehá people, but it's also in many other nations. So I'm wondering how those knowledge systems that come from who you are, and from the nations that you come from, how do they affect the work that you're doing in terms of looking forward? So maybe I'll start with Samian.
Je suis même pas sûr d'avoir compris la question, en fait. In French?
I'm just thinking in terms of, we think about future from a Western point of view as this thing that's coming. Like it's a linear. We're in the present, there was the past, and we're going to the future. But for many indigenous cultures, for many indigenous ways of knowing, they're all melded together. We think about when we give our thanks, we give thanks that include the past and the present and the future, and we talk about the 7 generations prophecy. So there's some real knowledge worldviews that inform our thinking that's quite different, and I'm wondering if that kind of thing affects your work.
OK. Mais je suis un peu partagé par rapport à toute l'origine, les traditions, je pense qu'il faut arrêter aussi de jouer dans le folklore des Premières Nations. Je pense que j'ai l'impression comme si on se privait un peu d'avancer aussi à quelque part. Je pense qu'il faut arriver au 21e siècle, un peu comme la planète aussi. J'ai l'impression qu'on oui, on a des connaissances, on a du savoir, on a des aînés dans nos communautés qu'on se doit d'écouter, qu'on se doit de respecter. Et il y a des transmissions orales depuis toujours qui existent dans les communautés autochtones, mais j'ai l'impression qu'à un moment donné, il faut aussi aller à l'écoute de l'autre. Il faut aussi s'approcher de l'autre aussi. On est rendu en 2017 au Canada avec la situation actuelle. On pourra plus, on n'a pas le pouvoir de revenir dans le temps non plus. Je pense que c'est quelque chose qu'il va falloir se mettre à l'idée et on ne pourra pas renvoyer d'Européens non plus de l'autre côté. J'ai essayé, ça ne marche pas, non, c'est vrai. Mais c'est quelque chose qui je pense qu'il faut suivre aussi l'air du temps et je pense qu'on a tellement à apprendre l'un de l'autre et je pense qu'on peut beaucoup s'apporter aussi l'un et l'autre. Et surtout dans le monde actuel dans lequel on vit, dans la modernisation aussi des communautés autochtones, des Amérindiens aussi qui font le choix de vivre dans les milieux urbains. Et je pense qu'il y a des connaissances à aller chercher autant chez les Québécois, chez les Canadiens, et l'inverse chez les Premières Nations. Je pense qu'il faut arrêter d'avoir cette mentalité peut-être fataliste ou de se ghettoiser entre nous-mêmes. Et je pense que la clé est l'éducation. L'éducation chez les jeunes autochtones sur le monde dans lequel on vit actuellement. Et je pense que ça, c'est une chose qu'il ne faut pas négliger. Et de leur dire la vérité, de leur dire dans le monde dans lequel on vit. Et oui, de garder cette fierté, de garder ses origines, de garder l'histoire de nos ancêtres, c'est extrêmement important parce qu'on sait d'où on vient. Et c'est ce qui fait de nous un peuple extrêmement fier. Mais je suis extrêmement fier, par exemple, aussi d'être éduqué, de voyager partout à travers le monde. Et ce que j'aime dire aux jeunes dans les communautés autochtones, c'est vous avez le droit de rêver. Le monde est accessible à vous et il y a tout un monde de possibilités en dehors d'une petite réserve d'un kilomètre carré où est-ce qu'on s'empêche ou peut-être qu'on se prive de voir le monde. Et ça, des fois, je trouve ça triste. Je pense qu'il faut aller de l'avant et il faut aller vers l'autre. Et c'est comme ça qu'on grandit, en fait. Ouais.
Well, I feel that my education in this white world has, I don't feel like I have this indigenous worldview of the future of time being collapsed or anything like that, to be totally honest. I think there's just two things I have to say about that. One is that I remember talking to a very respected person, Native person that I know, Mohawk person, and when I told her about Time Traveler TM, when I first had the idea, she said, well, our people always traveled to different times to work out problems in the present. So that was cool. And then the other thing I feel like telling you about is from a novel I read in high school called Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. Who's read it? Anybody? Oh! Well, in that book, aliens come to Earth, and they're super powerful, and but they're also very benevolent. But the main thing is that they don't show themselves to the humans. Okay, and the humans are like, well, why can't we see you? And they're like, you're not ready yet. In 50 years, once you've lived under our rule for a while, we will reveal ourselves to you. So 50 years pass, and they indeed reveal themselves, and they have horns and leathery wings and cloven hooves. They look like the devil. And as they knew what happened, the people did not freak out because they had been, because actually religion was totally ruined. But they said, well, why do we have images of you? You've come here in our past. And they answer, no. Actually, when there's an event that's traumatic enough, you can remember the future. And what they were there to do was to usher in basically the next evolution of human being. Basically, all the babies everyone was dying. So it was like a very traumatic event. So they remembered these aliens, but remembered their future.
So I can't believe I'm going to do this. I'm going to quote Scott Benensine-Bandan as a reference of wisdom. So Scott Benensine-Bandan is an artist. He's Anishinabe, and he's been in residence in our studio for the last couple of years. But we were talking about this stuff recently, and he said, the future's already happened, right? We just haven't caught up with it yet. And I think that for the work that we do, that's one of the things I really kind of try to keep in mind, because I think in the same way that, particularly Indigenous youth may feel like, they're constrained to the reserve, right? Or they're constrained to a particular sort of place or something like that. I also think that they're, constrained, and not just the youth, but lots of us, they're constrained in terms of their feeling that they can own the future, right? That the future is something that they can make. They feel that they're at the mercy of forces now, and that their people have been to the mercy of external forces for a long time now. And so there just isn't a lot of space and conversation about, like, okay, this is what I imagine things are going to be like 100 years from now, or 150 years from now. And for me, the important thing about that is because then that orients you towards what you might do here in the present. And it allows you to look into the past to understand what teachings you might be able to bring forward to make that future happen. And so a big part of what we do is actually just kind of making space for those conversations about the future that are mindful of the present and of the past, and trying to communicate really strongly that these are not demarcated, right? It's not that the past is just the past, right? Or that the past has to keep being replayed in the present because it's tradition and we need to keep doing it, right? But that we can be mindful of those things, but the job of the present generation is to evolve and to innovate and to figure out how it is that we're gonna live in the present so that we can get to that future that we want to get to.
Thanks all. So having said that, given the work that you all do, what are the risks involved in that? And I thought about this because and you might be aware of the recent controversy around Elizabeth Lepense's work, Thunderbird Strike, which is a video game, a speculative, wherein a Thunderbird being can cleanse the land of oil pipelines, and it's a game. But the American oil lobby has come out incredibly viciously against her, basically calling it something that promotes violence. And I'm wondering if you've had any backlash for the work that you do, or can you foresee real risks in terms of a much more polarized environment that exists politically, perhaps even socially right now?
So the Elizabeth's game is very interesting because, it's a relatively kind of small, contained game. And you fly around as a thunderbird, and you can sort of draw upon the lightning to strike the pipelines and the trucks and things like that to destroy them. But what gets lost in all this stuff is you can also draw upon that power to revive animals in the landscape, right? And so there's a very balanced view about like what this power could be used for. But the reaction to it, I think, is very instructive because as I feel the last year has really shown, is that, down south certainly, but it's here as well, is that white supremacy is like going strong. And that anything that really seriously challenges the hold of the kind of the current power structure, which is frankly race-based, and that actually might have the chance to get not just brown people thinking about this stuff, but other people, white people, people who are part of that power structure, thinking about these things in a way that is sort of so playful and actually kind, is seen as a threat because of the fact that there's a recognition that things are changing underneath that power structure just from simple demographics. And I don't think, as we've seen down in the States, so I'm a dual citizen, so I'm born and raised in the United States, it's made it really, the election of Trump and what's happening down there, has made it really clear to me that there's a significant portion of the population that would rather burn the damn thing to the ground than to share in any meaningful way. And so I think that games like Thunderbird Strike are really important because they open up different avenues of conversations that aren't just the usual political conversation or legal conversation. And I think that the work that we do, a big part of the reason why I continue to do it is, and the reason why we focus, we work with small groups, we work with, say, 15 students, 10 students at a time. And we actually get a lot of sort of pressure, not pressure in some ways, but it's a lot of people who sort of are interested. They want us to expand it, right? They want us to scale. But one of the reasons why we stay small and focused is because we think that really intense sort of individual interaction, changing, really trying to change the mindsets of Indigenous youth in particular, in a way that it sort of really sinks in and they can really understand it and they can see how to enact it, is the most important thing at this moment.
Yeah. What? Non. Mais c'est un cas isolé. J'ai pas entendu l'histoire complète de ce dont tu parles, mais Je pense qu'il y a certaines communautés où c'est vrai qu'il y a certains endroits où est-ce que, comme dans les prairies par exemple, où est-ce que beaucoup de Premières Nations dépendent de leur environnement. Il y a certaines réserves, il y a certaines places et ils ont ce qui s'est passé à Standing Rock par exemple aux États-Unis, je veux dire, il y a des raisons extrêmement fortes pour revendiquer leur territoire. Ce que les Haïdas ont fait dans l'Ouest canadien est l'exemple parfait au Canada pas juste de résilience, mais de force et de regroupement et de vivre ensemble. Mais il faut que ce soit approprié justement à l'environnement qui t'entoure. Et si ton environnement dépend de ta survie, de la survie de ta descendance aussi. Je pense que les Premières Nations ont toujours pensé à cette génération plus loin et ça a toujours été comme ça depuis la nuit des temps. Mais c'est paradoxal en même temps parce que ce qui me choque le plus, c'est quand je vois... Parce qu'on parle quand même, tu parles des pipelines, tu parles des trucs comme ça. Je ne suis pas contre l'exploitation en soi. Et les Premières Nations ne le sont pas en général non plus. Quand je regarde des projets comme le Plan Nord, c'est juste que c'est fait à une échelle démesurée. C'est pas fait et c'est pas égal. Je veux dire, si on extrait le Nord de l'or en Abitibi et jusqu'au nord et que les communautés autochtones touchent zéro redevance, c'est inacceptable. Et c'est comme ça partout en Amérique, je veux dire. Et pas juste en Amérique. Moi, on m'a foutu dehors de la Nouvelle-Calédonie parce que j'ai pris la défense des Kanaks, parce qu'il y a des mines de nickel là-bas. Puis je comparais la situation au Plan Nord et puis on m'a dit, toi, tu quittes le pays. Et puis c'est vraiment... mais il y a des raisons pour le faire. Et il y a des places comme... Je n'aimerais pas le nom de certaines réserves, mais il y a des réserves tellement petites. Et quand quelqu'un montre l'exemple par ses actions en nous disant, écoute, nous, on ne veut pas de mines sur notre territoire parce que c'est pas bon pour la santé, ça pollue la rivière. Mais la rivière, tu y vas jamais, puis tu pêches jamais dans ta rivière, puis tu prends ton pick-up pour aller chez ton voisin, puis que tu manges un baril de poulet frit Kentucky. Pour moi, ça, c'est nocif pour ta santé, beaucoup plus que l'exploitation qu'on va en faire autour de toi. Et c'est des exemples comme ça, parfois, que je trouve paradoxal oui, on dépend de la nature, ça c'est sûr et certain, mais je pense qu'il faut que ce soit fait de façon équitable, que ce soit fait de façon raisonnable et que les Premières Nations soient premièrement consultées quand on fait ce genre de démarche-là, que ce soit les pipelines, que ce soit le Plan Nord, que ce soit tous les développements qui se passent aux États-Unis, au Canada. Les Premières Nations n'ont pas le choix d'en faire partie. Et il faut arrêter d'ignorer cette situation-là, en fait. Voilà.
I don't take any risks.
I was running out of time anyway. How are we doing here? We got a few more minutes. I do want to shift a little bit here, and I just want to ask Jason Skawennati to talk just a bit about the Initiative for Indigenous Futures and what that is and what you are accomplishing and what you hope to accomplish through that.
So, yeah, I don't think it was said in the bios, Jason and I are a couple. We have children together. We make work and babies, yeah. So we've been working for a long time with these ideas about the future and Indigenous people in the future, and mainly we're artists and we work with artists, and I guess, yeah, you know, he'll tell this story a whole lot differently and in a probably better way, but I wanted to say, you know, one of the things that we're doing with the Initiative for Indigenous Futures is one of the things we learned as we were talking about the future when we were just Aboriginal territories in cyberspace was that Native people weren't thinking about the future. And one of the things I started to think was like, oh, maybe it's because, we still have the highest suicide rate, we still have the highest incarceration rate, we still have the highest dropout rate, we still don't have drinking water, we still have, it's just crappy. So was it because no one ever envisioned us in the future, or is it because we don't envision our own future, like chicken and egg? I don't know. But as we started talking to people about it, they really were into the idea of like drawing a picture of themselves in the future, of their descendants, in 7 generations. And so we started to think about how maybe instead of in addition to imagery, we could have someone like a food sovereigntist think about our future and what would they do? What do they see? What do they want to see in our future? We could have a policymaker do the same thing. We could have a health person. So we wanted to basically open it up to non-artists and to really have all of our people thinking together, creatively visualizing our future together. That's my version of the story.
One of the things we tell the research assistants who work with us is that they're going to have a lot of fun because they essentially have 2 bosses. And the 2 bosses might have different stories a lot of the time. But they resonate. So, one of the things, the kind of the tagline, subtitle of when we were coming up with the initiative for Indigenous Futures was that, in the Native community, we spent a lot of time thinking about the past, right? And reflecting on the past and sometimes living in the past or trying to live in the past. And then we have some really serious challenges in the present. And so there's not a lot of space within the communities where people are thinking concretely about the future. And the Initiative for Indigenous Future was set up explicitly to do that, to create sort of multiple different kinds of conversations. So creating artwork, we do an annual symposium, we support artists in residencies and scholars in residencies, we support students coming to Concordia to work with us and work on this type of stuff. Because we felt that it was really dangerous, actually, looking around and thinking and seeing that a lot of our people weren't thinking that they had a future, right? And that also the other side of it is it's actually really kind of scary when you think about it, when you sort of look at the future imaginary of the dominant culture and there are no brown people and no Indian people, is what that's saying. What that's saying is, as Noel Hopkins, Afrofuturist writer, has said, it kind of means that they're all assuming that there was some great race war and all the brown people lost, right? And so it's also important in that wider context to put those images out there, right? And to put those imaginations out there to sort of cement the idea that we're not only do we survive and we're here now, but we're gonna be there in the future, right? And we're gonna be there in really vital and strong and interesting ways that remain connected to the past, that it's not about leaving the past behind, it's about bringing it along with us. And so I think that the core idea has always been, let's just have a conversation about this, right? Because we're not having a conversation about this. And then let's see what sort of things we dream up, and then let's support people, students and artists, et cetera, let's support people in making things that help us get to that future.
Thank you. Just before I open it up to any questions that you guys might have, Samian, I'm wondering if you might want to talk about Wapikoni Mobile a bit, because it obviously clearly had an effect on your life and your career, but it continues to have that effect in terms of reaching to Indigenous youth.
Ouais, c'est sûr que, en fait, je serais pas là si c'était pas de Wapikoni Mobile et de Manon Barbeau que j'ai rencontré en 2004. Le projet que Manon Barbeau a initié avec Wapikoni Mobile, c'est un projet qui sauve des vies. Et c'est ce que j'ai toujours dit, c'est vraiment une façon de donner une voix aux Premières Nations, aux jeunes créateurs dans les communautés, d'avoir un point de vue intérieur des réserves et pas seulement des réserves, mais de leur propre existence aussi, de leur propre identité, de pouvoir mettre ça en image, de pouvoir mettre ça en musique. Je trouve que l'art est une des plus belles façons de pouvoir rassembler les gens, de pouvoir attirer l'attention des gens. C'est à travers le cinéma, à travers la musique, à travers plein de créateurs. Et puis, c'est pas pour rien que Manon va recevoir l'Ordre national du Canada dans 2 jours. Et c'est magique. J'ai appris tout à l'heure à côté de Manon et je trouve ça... Je reviens pas, on revient quand même 13 ans en arrière et en fait, je suis le premier à avoir rentré dans la roulotte de Wapikoni Mobile en 2004, à la première escale à Picogan et je me cacherai pas, j'étais peut-être dans une période de ma vie où est-ce que je savais pas où j'allais. Et Manon Barbeau a été une des premières personnes dans ma vie à me dire... Tu as du potentiel. Et ce que tu fais, c'est bien et tu peux penser probablement à demain. Pour moi, qui était quelqu'un qui vivait tellement au jour le jour et je ne savais même pas si j'allais pouvoir manger demain. Et mon style de vie était comme ça. Et puis, je pense que le Wapikoni Mobile, qui est une roulotte, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas, qui va dans plusieurs communautés autochtones depuis déjà plus de 13 ans, qui initie les jeunes... évidemment, à cette technologie-là de cinéma, de studio d'enregistrement. Et la roulotte s'installe pendant 1 mois dans les communautés à épauler des jeunes pour créer et à raconter leur histoire. Et pour moi, ça a été une façon de me découvrir, de me connaître aussi. Et ça m'a littéralement sauvé la vie. Et depuis 13 ans, ça sauve la vie de plusieurs jeunes dans les communautés autochtones. Et on entend encore parler de suicide, de consommation, de drogue, et on ne se cachera pas que la situation est désastreuse, mais il y a des portes de sortie, comme Wapikoni Mobile, comme raconter son histoire, juste de parler, parce qu'il ne faut pas oublier que la plupart des jeunes dans les communautés autochtones sont extrêmement introvertis, beaucoup de misère à s'exprimer. On oublie de leur dire qu'ils sont beaux. On oublie de leur dire qu'ils ont du talent. Et des projets comme ça, c'est très, très, très rare sur la planète où est-ce qu'on donne la parole à des jeunes autochtones qui ont une histoire à raconter. Ces enfants-là sont devenus des professeurs pour certains parce qu'ils ont une école de vie peut-être différente. Et je vous invite fortement, il y a justement juste à côté, il y a la sortie ici, il y a des projections de films de Wapikoni. Et vous pouvez aller sur le site web, tout simplement, wapikoni.ca ou .com.ca, et puis vous avez accès à un paquet de films. Et c'est vraiment une des plus belles façons de découvrir la culture autochtone à travers l'humour, à travers des histoires magnifiques, des poèmes extraordinaires mis en images. Et puis Wapikoni Mobile est juste magnifique, c'est tout. Voilà.
Thank you. And I'll remind everybody that the Wapikoni has a booth here for the entire length of the conference. So I would also echo that and encourage you to go down and see some of the amazing work that's been created through that project. I will open it up if anybody has any question for our esteemed panelists. We do have a microphone here and another one in the back. If anybody wants to engage. Well then, I guess. All right, yeah, all
Don't
right.
feel you have to.
Yeah.
No, I did want to ask this question, and as of Jason. Just curious, in the future, what the land looks like, and fish, plants, for example. I know the connection obviously should be self-explanatory, but I'm curious in the future what indigenous lands and species look like.
I mean, the real answer, I don't know. But I mean, I can talk about, what we see from the people that we work with. So one of the interesting things is, thinking, like I said, a lot of these, there's some kind of post-apocalyptic sort of aspect to it. So things have been irradiated, the the climate has gone to hell or something like that. And what we see are artists who are thinking about, okay, so what does it mean? So for instance, so we have one artist who's Inuit. No, what is Mandy? Is she Cree? I think Northern Cree. Sorry, Mandy, if I got that wrong. But sort of imagining a future where there's been this basically sort of radioactive disaster, and all the animals are irradiated, but her people have sort of formed a relationship with the radioactive moose. And that actually the radioactive moose, the blood from the radioactive moose, actually allow them to access their blood memory and access sort of both the past and the present, or past and the future in the present, right? And so we see things like that. We're trying to think about, okay, how do we take our understandings of our relationships with our animal kin now, and then project them into the future when the initial reaction might be, oh my God, that thing's radiated and we don't want to have anything to do with it, but actually thinking, well, no, that's our kin. And so how do we create another type of relationship with this kin that, instead of thinking about it as being sort of mangled or badly mutated or anything like that, just thinking about it as kin that has sort of taken on a new configuration. So that's the best answer I can give to that one.
Thanks to all four of you. I'm just wondering, Samian, you spoke a bit about Manon and the influence that she had on your life. And so I'm wondering if each of you could speak to perhaps some of the individuals, either human or non-human, who inspired you to do the work, but also who, because the work can be very challenging, and I know that you're all pushing boundaries and imagining new things. And so what continues to inspire you as you do this work?
Moi? Ce qui m'inspire? Ma plus grande inspiration, pour être honnête, c'est Jésus-Christ. Pour moi, c'est un des plus grands révolutionnaires que la Terre ait porté. Et c'est ma plus grande inspiration, point. Voilà, je pense qu'on s'inspire beaucoup de gens comme Gandhi, Mandela, Luther King. On va porter facilement un T-shirt de Mandela, Luther King, Gandhi, et parce que c'est devenu des grands philosophes et des gens très, très, très inspirants. Et on oublie que ces gars-là ont été inspirés même d'un des plus grands révolutionnaires au monde, qui est Jésus-Christ. Et pour moi, c'est pas pour rien que je le porte. Et il ne faut pas mélanger les choses non plus. Là. Je ne vous parle pas de religion ici, je ne vous parle pas de pensionnat autochtone, je ne vous parle pas de toutes ces choses-là. Je vous parle de mon inspiration personnelle. Et voilà, c'est un révolutionnaire qui m'aide énormément à aimer. Tout simplement. Et à créer. Voilà.
I have no response to that.
I think sometimes I think of my life as just kind of a series of people who did what you talked about with Manon, right? Who sort of kind of looked at me and saw me and were like, okay, there's something you have to offer, right? And we're going to create space for you to do that, and then you got to do it. And I think that, there's lots of people, they just, somebody I think about all the time for me anyways, is Sarah Diamond, who's now the president of OCAD University, who both Skawennati and I spent a lot of time at Banff in the sort of mid to late 90s. And what I learned from Sarah was how to create resources and create a space where people feel comfortable coming in and learning how to really take full advantage of those resources for their practice or for their community or whatever it might be. Also learned, how to how to hopefully put on a good conference, and how to be able to have a fairly intense and high level kind of intellectual conversation, but not have it kind of lift off the ground and just kind of float off into space. But anyways, when I think about it, there's a lot of people, but a lot of those people are people that were devoted to building capacity, right? So they're really thinking hard about, how do I take the advantages that I have and leverage those, and then open those up to people who normally are not allowed into those spaces.
Thank you so much for tonight, but also for your broader work, I guess, past and future. I've really just enjoyed this whole thing so much. I guess I want to build on Jamie's question a little and think about space, as I tend to do as a geographer, but specifically, I was curious if you would tell us a little bit more about the future city, the urban, and maybe especially, Jason, this won't surprise you, with a consideration of scale, and how we might think about how some of the kinds of very intimate and interpersonal kinds of relations and very material kinds of relations without scaling might work in a kind of future urban Indigenous world. Thank you.
That's my next project. That's a great question, because it's so rich and there's so much to think about. I've lost you. There you are. I just wanted to say that I don't think of myself as a person who predicts the future. I think of myself as someone who has desires for the future, and wants to put them out there, and maybe people will want to help me make those come true, or maybe not, right? But as far as cities are concerned, I love cities. And I like people a lot, and I'm okay with lots of people around. What I'm not okay with is people being, piggish, selfish, overconsumption. What we've seen, I walk to work every day. We live right in the city. Walk to Concordia in 15 minutes, and garbage just thrown on the road. Like, why? Why you gotta be like that? So the city I dream of and envision and wish for, right, is, cliche, but very green. It's respected. Like the land that we're walking or, hovercrafting over is, green and clean and respected. One of the things that opened my mind was a conversation that Kim Tallbear had here. Well, we as Initiative for Indigenous Futures asked her to come and talk about the future, and she was definitely talking about polyamorousness, or was that later? I mean, was that after the talk or during it? And so she made me wonder, like, well, if that's, if we're going to live in extended families again, or with multiple partners, will we all live in the same house? Or will, what will our bedrooms look like? Will we have a single bed or, double kings? Like, what's it going to be? So I think it's, and all of these things have an effect on the city. Like, what will the city look like? How will we move around in it? What kind of, like, will we have bigger cars, or will it mean like bicycles built for 10, yeah. But I don't know. It's just what I wish for is that we can all live together peacefully and respectfully. And meaning respecting not just humans, but yeah, the earth and the water, all that good Indian stuff.
Susan, thank you for a fantastic panel. My question is about your thoughts on the relationship between crisis and time, because the Indigenous communities were pushed into a crisis for such a long period of time, like such an extended period of crisis of, as you said, poverty, HIV/AIDS, homelessness, prisons, child welfare apprehensions, etc., access to water, all these things. But the word crisis implies some kind of sudden change from the way things normally are. But colonialism seems to have pushed Indigenous communities into a long-term crisis. The crisis is the way things normally are in this time that we're living in. And I guess my question is about whether you think that kind of long-term extended crisis has affected the way that Indigenous communities experience time in your mind.
Well, we sure are patient. You know, I've been waiting my entire life to be put back on the ban list of my community. You know, it's you go to these meetings, you talk to people, you do protests, you ask and beg and plead and, you know, petition the courts, and nothing changes. You know, and the government remains, whether they're, you know, it was Ryan McMahon who said, you know, tomorrow, he said this, of course, on the eve of the election, tomorrow you're going to be electing a new prime minister. But in the end, when you take off his clothes, you're just going to have orange underwear, blue underwear, or red underwear, and a white body, a white male body. And make no mistake, he said, and I believe this too, that he's just the top Indian agent. You know, his job is to keep us in crisis. You know, I mean, for myself, you know, loving science fiction, it's not some weird thing. It's pretty obvious. Like, that's where I can live a happy life. You know, that's where I can be all the things that I want to be. You know, it's just recently that I'm like, hey, maybe we can actually make it happen. You know, but it's, you know, it's like, yeah, you're exactly right. So I don't know if we experience time differently because I'm not in a non-native body. But I think you get what I'm saying.
Si je peux me permettre, je pense que c'est une très bonne question, mais je pense que c'est une question extrêmement complexe. Il ne faut pas oublier que sédentariser des nomades dans un laps de temps aussi court que l'on connaît. J'ai mon fils qui a 10 ans, j'ai aussi, comme monsieur, 5 générations dans ma famille. Mon arrière-grand-mère était une nomade en Abitibi. Ma grand-mère est née sur la rivière aussi en Abitibi. Donc, eux ont vécu dans les tipis, ont vécu et ma famille a été déportée 5 fois de la ville d'Amos pour chercher, avant même de fonder une réserve, ont été déportés 5 fois. Et à un moment donné, à 5 kilomètres de la ville d'Amos, il y avait un tas de fumier d'une ancienne ferme et ils ont bâti le village d'où je viens, qui s'appelle Picogan, sur ce tas de merde-là, finalement. Et c'était en 1959. Donc, politiquement parlant, socialement parlant, on n'est pas au même niveau que la société actuelle dans laquelle on vit, dans la modernité dans laquelle on vit. Certaines réserves ont été fondées dans la fin des années 50, début des années 60. Donc, les conseils de bande ne sont pas formés encore pour faire face à la réalité dans laquelle on vit actuellement. Et il ne faut pas dénigrer non plus et mal interpréter ce mal de vivre-là qui est dans certaines communautés. Et avant même d'avoir fondé ces réserves-là, ma grand-mère a été arrachée de ses parents directement à l'âge de 9 ans pour se faire mettre dans les pensionnats et de ne pas les revoir jusqu'à l'âge de 18 ans. Donc, c'est une génération troublée. C'est une génération qui a un énorme problème identitaire. Donc, oui, il y a eu des problèmes de consommation. Oui, ça s'est transmis. Oui, il y a d'autres personnes qui ont vécu les mêmes sévices dans les communautés par ceux qui sont allés au pensionnat. Et ça, on parle d'une génération toujours en vie aujourd'hui. Je vous parle de mes parents, je vous parle de ma mère, je vous parle de ma grand-mère et de mon arrière-grand-mère qui ont vécu ces traumatismes-là. Donc, les crises existent, mais c'est pour ça que j'en reviens beaucoup à l'éducation dans les communautés autochtones. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui posent des questions des fois. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire concrètement pour aller aider le tiers-monde dans le Québec en 2017? Mais il y a des écoles dans les communautés où est-ce qu'il manque des professeurs. Et c'est là-dessus qu'il faut axer. Il faut vraiment axer sur la prochaine génération et de ne pas toujours axer sur les crises actuelles. Je pense qu'on n'est pas à la même place. On ne pourra pas l'être non plus. Et ce n'est pas de cette façon-là. Je pense que le génocide de la loi sur les Indiens, qui est encore actif aujourd'hui, est un gros problème par rapport à cette crise-là. Et c'est quelque chose qu'on se doit de revoir collectivement aussi. Ouais.
Hi, thank you very much for helping us imagine a future. I grew up in the 90s, and I remember nerding out with my brothers watching Voyez and seeing Chakotay, and he was the only brown guy in space. And my brother used to really like him, and he went on to be an RCMP because he could imagine a future for himself. Have you guys ever reached out to Chakotay and like try to do like some sort of like
Good idea.
project with him? Because I think that'd be pretty cool, and I know I'd be interested in it. Just a question.
Can you help us make that happen?
Yes, I would love to.
Yes, I would love to also. Let's talk afterwards.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry. So my question was, you've all done some really, really interesting and actually wonderful work with regards to imagining the future of it from an Indigenous perspective, which I think is really central to what we have to do if we want to evolve as a country and as a democracy and as citizens of a larger world. But my question was specifically, I think, Monsieur Samian, you talked about vous en avez parlé dans votre réponse à l'avant-dernière question. My question is, in all of the imaginings of the future that you've had, especially Mr. Lewis and Mrs. Skawennati, from the youth, what are they saying about concrete change and concrete things that we can do? I know we have framework like the 92 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but my question is, what are they saying and what are you saying that we have to do as, I mean, I'm a 15-year-old white girl, right? So like as allies and as citizens of this country who benefit from privilege and who benefit from rights and who want to make that into a universal thing. So yeah.
I'll start the answer. Thank you for your question. Educate yourself. Educate yourselves, educate your children. We would really like it if you would know about the treaties that our ancestors agreed upon. We would like it if you knew about the Indian Act. We would like it if you knew about all the reasons why we're so angry. Because I think once that happens, we can have a conversation. We don't have to start at Native 101 every time. We can start at a higher level and we can get further.
Je pense que tu comprends le français? Ouais. Je pense que on nous, en tant qu'artistes, en tant que chanteurs, acteurs, peu importe, on nous lance souvent des défis et on nous invite souvent dans ce genre d'événements où on veut peut-être notre opinion parce que en tant qu'artiste, on a une liberté d'expression, contrairement aux politiciens. Il y en a plein probablement qu'il y a des choses qu'ils peuvent pas dire en ce moment. Et ces défis-là, même si on n'est pas dans notre zone de confort, on arrive à partager, à créer quelque chose. Mais je pense que aussi, je pense qu'on a un devoir envers nos politiciens de leur lancer des défis. Et pour répondre à ta question, j'ai vraiment l'impression que ce soir, s'il y a quelqu'un qui peut nous entendre, c'est bien le ministre de l'Éducation. Je pense que lui a un devoir d'aller dans les écoles et écouter les jeunes. Ça fait 4 ans que je le fais. Mes textes se sont retrouvés dans les manuels scolaires de secondaire 2 à secondaire 5. Donc j'ai le privilège et surtout j'ai le devoir de me rendre dans les écoles pour rencontrer ces jeunes-là. Et ces conférences-là que je fais avec eux, c'est tourner vers eux pour savoir ce à quoi eux, ils rêvent finalement. Et j'aimerais tellement que le ministre de l'Éducation en face de même, et qui se rende lui-même dans les écoles pour écouter le besoin de ces jeunes-là, autant chez les Autochtones, autant chez les Québécois, et qu'il y a une réelle réforme scolaire, qu'on nous enseigne l'histoire comme elle se doit au Québec, au Canada, et je trouve que ce qu'on nous enseigne par rapport à l'histoire des Premières Nations, c'est n'importe quoi. Et ça, c'est à revoir et c'est à corriger. Et malheureusement, c'est des cycles qui peuvent prendre 10 ans, 20 ans, parce qu'il faut se rendre aux politiciens. Mais je pense que lui, peut-être, a justement le pouvoir de prendre une décision, de changer les choses et d'aller vers ces étudiants-là et de leur poser la question. Et c'est un défi que j'y lance. Je ne sais pas s'il est là ce soir ou si vous le connaissez, ben, appelez-le, s'il vous plaît.
So I think that my answer, I think, complements these in the sense that, you know, in addition to educating yourself and, you know, working to help make the education of others better on this particular topic, I think a big thing is kind of creating space and being active, in the sense that if you're not actively sort of trying to do something, however small, it doesn't have to be huge, right, that addresses this issues and is conscious of this issue, then you are part of the problem. Because the status quo, right, is clearly not working. And the only way, we can't be the ones that are always pushing for the change, right? Because there's a lot more of everybody else. We're tired. We do lots of different kinds of work, and having to constantly be the people that, you know, we come to us and they're like, explain this to us. You know, why are you like this? Or what was the history? Or, you know, I wasn't paying attention in history class and it was garbage anyways, what they taught me, and is extremely tiring, right? So along with the educating yourself, which is easy to do in the day of Google, it's actually thinking actively what you can do in your life that will help kind of create space for Indigenous people to sort of come in to places that maybe they haven't felt welcome or they haven't felt empowered to sort of enter into and to do something effective. And just think about how that kind of clearing away and saying, okay, look, we want this, you to be part of this conversation, and also we're going to listen for a long time at the beginning. Right? It doesn't have to be listening all the time. It has to be a two-way conversation. But there's a lot of listening that needs to happen at the beginning because we haven't been listened to for so long, and also because there's such crappy, sort of misinformed stereotypes that are deeply embedded in people's heads that even a lot of the people who think that they're enlightened about this stuff, they're actually not, right? Because they actually haven't gone and looked at primary sources, or actually gone and looked at what Indigenous people have to say about what has happened and what is happening now.
Thank you all. I think we'll take one more question. So as it happens, we have one more question.
The last one. It kind of builds on the statement that Jason was just making. Good evening. Nakumi, thank you. Chimagwech. Naiwen, for that great panel, merci. I've got a question that kind of builds on what you were just saying, and I'm wondering if, you know, you've been talking about projecting Indigenous peoples far into the future, and you started off with the example of what you did in Ganawage with that amazing project, but I know that you have also done other things. I'm also from Concordia. Like, I'm not a plant, but I do know your work. And I was wondering if you might talk about not only what you've done since that project, like since the beginning of AbTech and OBX Labs, but also where you might project this work in the near future, like 5, 10, 15 years from now, because you have a rapt audience of lots of potential colleagues. And so I thought you might think about, or I'd love for you to talk about what the potential is in the immediate future for this project to, and specifically your work with Indigenous youth and how that might grow, and that applies to everyone on the panel, I think. Thank you.
As far as our thing is, I'll start, and he can, you know, all the little holes I leave, he'll fill them very nicely. You know, when we started the Skins project, which is basically teaching Aboriginal youth how to take stories from their communities and turn them into video games, or Machinimas. We really thought that once we saw that it was successful and that they enjoyed it and that we enjoyed it, we really saw that it could be something that would go across Turtle Island. I mean, the only problem with that is that we couldn't do it ourselves, right? So what we're working on now is trying to figure out how we can take our curriculum, which we've already put online, and anyone who wanted to do this class could pretty much do it, except that it really does take a certain kind of expertise, and and so now what we're trying to do is train people to give the workshops that we've been giving, so that they can just give them in their communities all over the place. So one of the things I think that Heather was referencing was that we were just in Hawaii, in Honolulu this summer, where we gave a workshop to 15 youth. And it was amazing. We were invited. They were like, we want you. We want the whole big workshop. So we went there for pretty much a month. And we worked with these young people. And they want us to come back and do exactly what I just described. And we're actually right now writing out what that curriculum looks like. So basically what we think we're going to do is next time we go back, 5 of the students, the keenest ones, are the 5 of the participants, I should say, from the workshop this summer, are going to come and do it again, but thinking of themselves as becoming trainers. And each time we go back, we're going to bring a smaller team, and the local people will make up a larger team. And so that's how we think we can go about it. We're also thinking about, what are smaller workshops that we can do. So we can go in and do maybe the first part of the workshop, which could be script writing, and train someone to do that. And so those people can be learning that when we go back home to our children and our homes, and then maybe come back in a month or a year, I don't know exactly what yet, do the second stage, and train people there so it can just keep moving.
So kind of response to the question Deb asked as well, which is sort of this thinking about this issue of scale. So yeah, the big challenge for us is like, how do we replicate these workshops? Because they seem to do fairly well, and they seem to be lots of people that are interested in having them, but the curriculum's not enough. It's the real tricky part is finding enough Indians, right? Like finding enough Indigenous people who are interested in learning the skills necessary to teach the workshops, and then have are sort of arranged in their life that they can go and teach those workshops. So for me, part of the dream is figuring, as 5 years from now, we will have established some kind of annual training institute where we bring people to Concordia, and we work with the local communities here, but what we're doing is we're using that as a training opportunity so that the people who come here can then go back to their communities and run these workshops. And they don't necessarily have to be the big 3-week-long one, which is quite crazy, actually, in lots of ways. But they can be smaller, they can be 2 days, they can be a week or something like that. So that's a really big dream of mine, is figuring out how to get the money for it, how to get the space for it, but how to find the people for it. All right, that's the real challenge. And I'm not quite sure how to solve it, except for the fact that as we go out to other places and do the workshops, we're finding more of those people, right? So, one of the great things about being in Hawaii is that we had 5 people take the programming track. And in all the 4 previous big workshops, we'd had 1 person do that, right? And sort of as more people get to know about it, we have more people kind of pop up out of the woodwork, and they come and find us. So it's also about just getting the word out. But I think for me, and I'll say this because my provost is here, one of the big dreams is to actually take the Initiative for Indigenous Futures, which, our funding is going to run out in a couple years, and actually sort of try to figure out a way to establish that as an institute or a research center or something like that, so it has a long life and it becomes a place where, Indigenous people worldwide are coming here to Concordia to sort of spend time thinking about these issues of the future and making work, making policy, making dreams, and then going back to their communities, sort of with the skills and the powers and the visions to try to make some of those things happen. And it's I think it's always that question of how do you make things sustainable, right, is always on our mind. And how do you create something that kind of keeps going? And this is one of the reasons why I cited Sarah Diamond as one of the people who made a big impact on me, right? Is because of the way that she sort of kind of systematically thought through all aspects of the Banff New Media Institute over the course of about 10 years and really made it a place that not only sort of, digital media artists from all over the world came, but Indigenous artists came to participate and partake in that exchange of ideas and to build capacity to learn how to do this stuff.
Any final? Okay. Thank you all. Nyawagoa, Jason. Nyawagoa, Samian. Nyawagoa, Skawennati. Nyawagoa, everyone. Nyawagoa to the Pierre, Elliott, Trudeau Foundation for hosting this on Haudenosaunee territory. Very inspiring words, and thank you. I think when we imagine, as Indigenous people, when we imagine, we create. And when we create, we mobilize. And when we mobilize, we claim. We claim space. Physical space, conceptual space, intellectual space, philosophical space, and future space. And you all do that through your work, through your words, through your engagement with community on various levels. So again, thank you for all that. Thank you for being with us tonight, and I hope you have a very pleasant evening, and now we can come and get drunk with y'all. So thank you.